ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ॐ नमो भगवते
भगवते वासुदेवाय।
नारायणं नमस्कृत्य
नारायणं
नारायणं
नमस्कृत्य
नमस्कृत्य
नरं चैव नरोत्तमं
नरं चैव नरोत्तमं
देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं
देवीं
देवीं
सरस्वतीं व्यासं
ततो जयम् उदीरयेत्।
ततो जयम् उदीरयेत्।
शृण्वता स्वकतः कृष्ण
शृण्वतां स्वकथा
स्वकथा
कृष्ण
यश्रवणकीर्तन
पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तन
विद्यन्तस्तो हि अभद्राणि
हृद्यन्तस्तो ह्यभद्राणि
धुनोति सुहृत्सताम्
विदुनोति सुहृदम्
नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु
नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु
नित्यं भागवत सेवया
नित्यं भागवत सेवया
भगवति उत्तम श्लोके
भगवते उत्तमश्लोके
भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी
भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी।
कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय
कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय
देवकी नंदनाय च
देवकीनन्दनाय च
नन्दगोपकुमाराय
नन्दगोपकुमाराय
गोविन्दाय नमो नमः।
गोविन्दाय
गोविन्दाय
नमो
नमो
नमः।
नमः।
मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुदीनतारिणम्। So we completed chapter 4. I just quickly not discuss because I want to cover more today. So in chapter 4, appearance of Sri Narada Muni, that was the topic. Primarily, so we saw the first set of six questions answered by um, Sukadeva Goswami and then Sutta Goswami, and then the next set of questions came from the sages of Naimisharanya, represented by Shaunaka Rishi. And the questions were about Srimad Bhagavatam, the origins and the history of Srimad Bhagavatam, and the speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam, and how, what are the characteristics, where he was born, what was the inspiration for him to speak, Sukadeva Goswami, and receiver of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is Parikshit Maharaj. What are his activities? How did he end up requesting to hear Bhagavatam from Sukadeva Goswami? So these are the questions asked by Shaunaka Rishi, representing all the sages of Naimisharanya. So now, so the inquiry begins, more focuses on the history of Srimad Bhagavatam and how this whole literature came about. And it is all, so towards the end of the chapter, we heard how Vyasadeva, after giving all the literatures of 4 Vedas, all the Puranas, Vedanta Sutras, Mahabharat, Ramayana, Itihasas, Upa Puranas, after giving all the literature, still he is despondent. He was not very satisfied. So he was himself questioning, was very sad, and he had a clue about why he was upset. So at that time, Narada Muni incidentally appears. Narada Muni happens to be his spiritual master. He appears at the place, and Vyasadeva receives him. In spite of his being very despondent, he receives him very nicely, makes him seated, and then the inquiries begin. So that is chapter 5. So the chapter summaries, it focuses on the fact that any other path other than bhakti is useless. The path of jnana, path of karma, which are filled in full descriptions in all the rest of the Vedic literature, is useless. Only when bhakti is there, it has any purpose and meaning. So that is vividly described in this chapter. And also we learn between the conversation between Narada and Vyasadeva, we learn a lot of lessons on how to be a good disciple. What are the dynamics of relationship between a guru and disciple, and how they relate to each other. So how the relation actually works. Guru is not God, but how does Guru understand the heart of a disciple? It happens primarily through Paramatma connection. We may think that, how does my spiritual master understand my situation and all, but Krishna gives him sufficient intelligence to understand the heart of every single disciple. So that's what happens in the case of Vyasadeva and Narada Muni. So if a disciple puts full faith in the instruction of Guru, he'll be given the strength to follow the instruction. So we learn that from the story of Vyasadeva. He becomes despondent, just like Arjuna became despondent in Bhagavad Gita, but he had full faith in the abilities of Lord Krishna to relieve him of the despondency. So similarly here we learn that Vyasadeva puts full faith in the abilities of Narada Muni to clear his doubts. And he humbly takes his position to accept the instruction of Narada Muni, and gets, in the course of interaction, he even gets chastised for all the literature that he had given. So we learn all of that. Yeah. So let's start the verses. So chapter 5, the title is Narada's instruction on Srimad Bhagavatam for Vyasadeva. So this is the instruction that led Vyasadeva to contemplate on the pastimes of Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord's pastimes, and author this great literature, Srimad Bhagavatam. Suta Uvacha. You can unmute if you want to chant.
Sutavacha
Atah tam sukhamasina
Atam Sukamasena
upasina brihatraya
Upasina Brihatraya
devarshi praha viprarsim
Devarshi Praha Viprasim
vinapani smayam iva.
Veena Pani Smayan Viva.
Yeah. Easy.
Translation by His Divine Grace is Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Suta Goswami said, thus the sage amongst the gods Narada, comfortably seated and apparently smiling, addressed the rishi amongst the Brahmanas, Vedavyasa.
Yeah. So Vedavyas is in his ashram. He received Narada Muni. He made him seated comfortably. Apparently, Narada Muni appears to be smiling while his disciple is in a despondent situation. It is not to make fun of Vedavyas, definitely, but Narada Muni already read the mind of Vedavyas. He knows exactly what Vedavyas is going through in the current circumstance. So understanding his mind and having a solution in his mind, he also knows what is the cause and what is the solution for the problem. So having known that, he was just smiling at his disciple. Yeah. Soon he will reveal the solution. So he was just he was coming and reassuring that he is there for him in this difficult situation. Narada Uvacha
Narada Uvacha
Parasarya Mahabhaga
Parasarya Mahabhaga
Vata Kachidatmana
Bhavata Kachidatmana
Paritushat Sharira
Paritoshyati Sharira
Atmamanasa Evava.
Atmanasa Evava.
He's addressing Vyasadeva as Parasarya, means a son of Parasara. Parasara was a great sage. Be addressing him as the son of Parasara reflects the respect Narada Muni gives to him as a son of a great sage. Why are you even disappointed in spite of being the son of such a great sage? Right? Yeah. Please read.
Addressing Vyasadeva, the son of Parashara, Narada inquired, "Are you satisfied by identifying with the body or the mind as objects of self-realization?"
Yeah. So he was just asking Vyasadeva. Basically, you are not addressing the soul's satisfaction. You're trying. All that you have given in Vedas is trying to satisfy body and mind primarily. It's there. The other aspect is there, but your focus is this. So, are you satisfied? It's like a somewhat mockery of it. By identifying with the body or the mind as objects of self-realization. Yeah, Vyasadeva, as the descendant of Parasara, a great powerful sage, had the privilege of having a great parentage, which should not have given Vyasadeva cause of despondency. Okay? One cannot be cheerful by nature unless one is factually seated in self-realization, which is transcendental to the material body and mind. Okay? So, Jignasitam Susampannam
Jitnyasitam
Apite Mahadadbhutam
Apite Mahadadbhutam
Kritavan Bharatam Yastvam
Kritavan
Bharatam Yasvam
Sarvardha Paribramhitam.
Sarvartha Paribramhitam.
Prabhuji, can you please increase the font size?
Better?
Yes.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah, please read.
Your inquiries were full, and your studies were also fulfilled, and there is no doubt that you have prepared a great, wonderful work, the Mahabharata, which is full of all kinds of Vedic sequences elaborately explained.
So now you see Narada Muni like a very good preacher. He tries to come to the, he doesn't directly tell the real problem. He's slowly building the context here. Right? So first he is appreciating the work done by Vyasadeva here. Right? He is appreciating the work of Mahabharata, which is, thousands and thousands of verses, largest work of literature, Vedic literature. So he's just explaining that no doubt you have done a great work as part of this literature. Yeah. And it means that Vyasadeva is fully knowledgeable. That's the point mentioned by Prabhupada here. It's there is nothing that Vyasadeva doesn't know. He already gave, in the interest of people of Kali Yuga, he has given the best work already. He knows everything and he put that in writing already in the Vedic literature. So he's acknowledging Vyasadeva, so Narada Muni is acknowledging the situation of Vyasadeva and what he had given, what is his situation, like that. So Jignasitam Aditam Cha
Jignasitam Aditam Cha
Yat Tat Sanatanam
Brahma Yat Sanatanam
Tapi Sochasi Atmanam
Tatapi Shochasi Atmanam
Atkritarda Iva Prabho.
Akritartha Iva Prabhu.
You have fully delineated the subject of impersonal Brahman as well as the knowledge derived therefrom. Why should you be despondent in spite of all this, thinking that you are undone, my dear Prabhu?
So he's asking very nicely, my dear Prabhu, What's wrong with you? You've already given full description of impersonal liberation. That is considered of the dharma of the kama moksha, that is considered the goal of life. You are given that. You have deliberated, see, jijnasitam, deliberated fully well. You covered end to end everything, all the cases. Adhitam, the best knowledge of absolute truth. Brahma, you have given the best knowledge already. Why should you be despondent, my dear Prabhu? Why should you be sad? Yasa uvacha.
Vyasa
Asteva me sarvamidam tayoktam.
Asteva me sarvam idam tayoktam.
Tadapi natma paritushyate me.
Tatapi natma paritushyate me.
Tanmulam avyaktam agadabodham.
Tanmulavyakamagadabodham.
Prichamahe tvatma bhavatma bhutam.
Pritchamahe bhavatbhutam.
He's further praising his qualities. No, sorry. This is now Vyasdev responding to the words of Narada Muni. Let's read this.
Vyasadeva said, all you have said about me is perfectly correct. Despite all this, I am not pacified. I therefore question you about the root cause of my dissatisfaction. For you are a man of unlimited knowledge due to your being the offspring of one, which is Brahma, who is self-born, without mundane father and mother.
Vyasadeva already had a clue about it, as we discussed in the last chapter. But he acknowledges, now I have my spiritual master in front of me. So I would rather inquire from him, what is the root cause of my dissatisfaction? He acknowledges what Narada Muni already said as being perfectly correct. Despite all this, I'm not pacified. I'm not at all peaceful in mind. See, Vyasadeva gave so much literature, and most of which 90% of it is filled with dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. And the person who gave the literature itself was not very peaceful. So imagine the people who follow all this literature and forget the Srimad Bhagavatam, do not study Srimad Bhagavatam, right? So it is the same. If the source itself is not satisfied, definitely the people who follow those other literature also will not be satisfied. And in this literature, there is again Mahabharata, which glorifies Lord Krishna, Gita, where there is the direct instruction of Lord, and there is Vishnu Purana. So much literature is there. Sometimes devotees ask, Prabhuji, we already studied Bhagavatam, should we go read Matsya Purana, Kuru Purana, Vishnu Purana? There is no point, because Vyasadeva already gave all of it, and now he came to this. Right? He was himself dissatisfied. So, and if you look at those literature, like for example, Skanda Purana is like multiple lakhs of verses. So where is the time to study all of them? Right? So
we cannot even understand, right, Prabhu? Those stuff. It's very hard to understand.
Very difficult. We'll get distracted and will not get to right conclusions if we read all of the literature. So by reading this, we can understand the author himself was not satisfied. How can people who depend on other literature can be satisfied?
Are we reading the purport?
This is the same thing we discussed.
Okay.
So I'll skip when we discuss already. Savai Veda Bhavan Veda Samasta Guhyam.
Savai Bhavan Veda Samasta Guhyam.
Toyat Purusha Purana.
Upasato yat Purusha Purana.
Paravaresho Manasaiva Viswam.
Paravaresho Manasaiva Vishwam.
Srijatyavati atti gunay asangha.
Srijati avati adgunairasanga.
Yeah, please read.
My Lord, everything that is mysterious is known to you because you worship the creator and destroyer of the material world and the maintainer of the spiritual world, the original personality of Godhead, who is transcendental to the three modes of material nature.
He's glorifying his spiritual master. Narada Muni is an incarnation of Lord, right? We read in the third chapter the incarnations in the various Leela avatars. Narada Muni is an incarnation. This is an incarnation dealing with another incarnation, Shaktavisar, and in a relationship of guru and disciple. So he's just glorifying the position of his spiritual master. Yeah. Please read this.
A person who is 100% engaged in the service of the Lord is the emblem of all knowledge. Such a devotee of the Lord in full perfection or devotional service is also perfect by the qualification of the personality of Godhead.
So Narada Muni was so qualified. He's called Bhagavan because he's such a pure devotee. Lord engages such devotees and enables them with all the perfections that they are, almost like Supreme Lord. Okay? Such a devotee of Lord is in full perfection of devotional service. He is also perfect by the qualification of the personality of God. As such, eightfold perfections of the mystic Astasiddhi constitute very little of his godly opulence. A devotee like Narada can act wonderfully by his spiritual perfection, which every individual is trying to attain. Sri Narada is a 100% perfect living being, although not equal to the personality of God. He is almost, he's like a perfect living being. Pampariyataan arko iva trilokim.
Iva trilokim.
Pascharo vayurivatmasakshi.
Antascharo vayurivatmasakshi.
Paravare brahmani dharmato vratiyai.
Paravare brahmani dharmato vrataya.
Snatasya me nyunamalam vichakshva.
Natasya me nyunam alam vichaksha.
Yeah, please read. These are all words spoken by Vyasadeva. He's trying to first glorify his spiritual master before he inquires, before he hears from the answers. Yeah.
Like the sun, your goodness can travel everywhere in the three worlds, and like the air, you can penetrate the internal region of everyone. As such, you are as good as the all-pervasive supersoul. Please therefore find out the deficiency in me, despite my being absorbed in transcendence under disciplinary regulations and vows.
So Vyasadeva compares his spiritual master sun, with air, and with supersoul. The reason is a bona fide spiritual master understands the heart of a disciple. Paramatma enables the connection. We may think sometimes, one time one devotee asked His Holiness Radhana Swami that, Maharaj, we are doing so many projects, the services we do are expanding. Now that we are doing so many services, we don't get opportunity to meet you and understand whether you are satisfied with our service. To that Maharaj said, Prabhuji, do you know Paramatma? Yeah. Disciple said, yes. Yes, through Paramatma connection, I understand what services you are performing, and I know where things are with every individual. So in this way, the spiritual master, we may think, when we go before the spiritual master, We may think we don't, Maharaj or Gurudev doesn't know what's going on in my life. But through through super soul connection, they actually know what goes on. And they can pinpointedly ask you questions, or they can guide you on the things that you really need. When you attend the class, sometimes you get, oh, Maharaj is talking exactly about what I need, right? Like that, because there is Paramatma trying to connect the Guru and the disciple, right? So now Vyasadeva is pointing to those qualities, right? How Narada Muni knows all about the problems in the heart of, that's going on in the heart of Vyasadeva. Therefore, find out the deficiency in me. Right? He's such a great soul. He's an incarnation of Lord, but still he takes such a humble position. So when we take humble position before the Guru and follow the instruction of the Guru, then we'll be enabled. We'll be given the strength. So our faith in Guru is proportional to the strength we get to follow the instruction of Guru. Right? So faith and the strength we get are proportionate. If you don't have faith, you will not have the strength to follow the instruction given by Guru. So here he exhibits his faith in his spiritual master. And so he is all knowing. Vyasadeva is Trikalagna. Everybody knows that. But see how he is putting himself in a humble position. In spite of giving all the literature, now he's already very advanced in age. He's not like, in his beginning of his career of writing the books. He had thousands of disciples. He had disseminated vast bodies of knowledge already through his disciples and the disciples of disciples. And now, after all of that, he's trying to find the problem in his work, trying to find the deficiency in his work. So despite my being absorbed in transcendence under disciplinary regulation and vows, despite myself working on this all my life in this area, I'm finding something is deficient in my work. See, this is the problem with anybody who is working on anything other than glorifying and remembering the Supreme Lord. So besides that, everything else is going to give the same kind of a problem in the heart. Right? So that's very clear. There is no better evidence than hearing directly the words of Vyasadeva, who is so much more qualified in the Vedic wisdom. Right? So that reassures us the path of Bhagavad Dharma is the highest.
Prabhuji, one real life experience that I would not my own experience, but I heard from one of our devotees about Harivilas Maharaj. Like that devotee went to meet with Maharaj for some other discussion, and they were struggling with something, and they had a discussion, and Maharaj said, it seems clearly, like that day, that devotee had woken up around 9:30 in the morning, it seems. So Maharaj said, I know you woke up 9:30 today. So try to wake up early, kind of thing. So he clearly said at what time the devotee woke up, and they were like taken back by surprise, it seems. So it's like whether Diksha Guru or Shiksha Guru, they know clearly what we are doing or what's happening in us, I guess. Hearing that, like we were really shocked. Even though, even if he's not our Diksha Guru, but Maharaj knows what we are going through or doing, I guess.
Correct. So sometimes we should go beyond logic to follow the instruction of superiors, especially like Shiksha Guru or spiritual master. So we should go beyond our own logic. Sometimes it doesn't even appeal why such an instruction is told, but we see this in many cases in the scripture and outside also. For example, I'll share some example. When Lord Chaitanya meets Ishwar Puri, already everybody knows Lord Chaitanya's position as a great devotee. But when he took Diksha from Ishwar Puri, he said, you are a murkha, you should just keep chanting the holy name. That's what he says. So Lord Chaitanya took it like, life and soul. That one instruction. So like that, we should go beyond logic. Logic doesn't work. Even in the scriptures, so many examples like that. For example, in the case of Devas, right? So when there was this Samudra Manthan happens, there are a lot of incidents we can learn from what the behavior of Devas versus Danavas. When initially Danavas were told to be on the side of the tail, right, to pull that. And they were, because of their false ego, they think that this is lower position, we want to go to the head, right? And Devas were instructed by Lord, okay, just follow whatever they say. And these guys will go to the tail, and the Danavas will go to the head. And Devatas wouldn't complain. Whenever Lord instructs, they just follow. And they go there, and when the Manthan was happening, there is a lot of fire emitted from the head of Vasuki, and the Danavas suffered like crazy at the time, right? They actually realized what went wrong with their decision. So just by following the instructions, sometimes we are very much saved. Superior instruction, right? We just follow, we are saved. For example, the other instruction, Indra. Indra, even though we hear so many pastimes about how Indra made mistakes, when Indra goes to Narada Muni's ashram to kill the son in the womb of Kayadu, right, the next demon, there Narada Muni simply says, do not even think about that. That person who is there in the womb of Kayadu is the greatest devotee. Narada Muni just hears and just follows. He just doesn't question why there is still danger because his father, he might change his mind. No questions, they just follow. Go beyond logic, right? So like that, we see so many instances. Yeah, even in the case of Srila Prabhupada, when Srila Prabhupada didn't like his wife in the beginning stages, but his father said, "This is good for you. You'll be detached from family life. Don't think of second wife now." And Prabhupada actually stick to that instruction, and that really helped him. He says that that is maybe if I'm attached to my wife and family, I would not have given up my family and would have started this worldwide movement following the Guru's order. Everything is orchestrated by the will of Lord, and we follow the superior's instruction in faith, then wonders would happen. We'll get the strength to follow, and we get the mercy of the Lord in the process. Right? These are some examples. If you have if anybody remembers anything you want to share, you can, in the same line, please share.
Prabhuji, I think in this, when we are reading this translation, I remember that 4.3 for Tadvidi Pranipatana Pariprashnana Sevaya. So even though Vyasadeva is well versed with all the knowledge, scripture knowledge, but still is more submissive to Narada Mahamuni and approaching the way he's approaching and asking the question.
When you are inquiring from your superior, especially like a spiritual master, forget about your intelligence and just try to follow the instruction. Right? So they know, they are telling you because they understand the situation better. Transcendental perspective, we may not understand at the time. So we need to take that position especially when we inquire. We should not use our intelligence at the time, right? Especially when instruction is coming. If you have some clarification question, just like Arjuna, sometimes Arjuna inquires from Krishna, how may I understand that you and you spoke the same wisdom to Vivaswan? I want to understand. I'm not condemning or I'm not doubting the validity of your statement that you spoke this knowledge to Vivaswan, but I want to understand how you spoke. So like that, we can be inquisitive if you don't understand, but you cannot contradict the statements. Right? So that's very important.
Sorry, I'll just take 1 minute. Today we were listening to Prabhupada's memories, and in that Harivilas Maharaj's video was there, in which Harivilas Maharaj, Prabhupada says some things, and Harivilas Maharaj says no, and he corrects Srila Prabhupada, and later exactly like what Prabhupada said happens. It seems. I'll share that video. I'm sure all of you might have heard regarding a route that Harivilas Maharaj was about to take while going back after his second initiation. So Prabhupada knew it beforehand, and Maharaj realized it later by experience. So we should never doubt our Maharaj.
Yeah. So it's the same instruction. Yeah, thank you. Sri Narada Uvacha
Shri Narada
Narada
Vacha
Vacha
Bhavatánudita Prayam
Bhavatánudita Prayam
Prayam
Yasho Bhagavato Malam
Yasho Bhagavato Malam
Yenaivasau Natusheta
Yenevasau Natusheta
Anyetat Darshanam Akhilam.
Manye Taddarshanam Akilam.
Yeah, please read. Now Narada Muni is speaking. Until now, Vyasdev took his humble position. Now Narada Muni started answering. Because there is a connection established, right? So Narada Muni came, he understood the situation, he was apparently smiling and sat down. And now Vyasdev first praised his spiritual master and made an inquiry. So now Narada Muni is answering. That's it, what he says. These are very powerful instructions. Next few verses. Yeah.
Sri Narada said, "You have not actually broadcast the sublime and spotless glories of the personality of Godhead. That philosophy which does not satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord is considered worthless."
Wow. First line itself, he just clarified the main mistake in Vyasdev's compilation of the vast literature that he has already given. You haven't actually broadcast the sublime and spotless glories. Right? Anudita Prayam, almost not praised. Yashaha, glories, Bhagavataha, of the personality of Godhead. Glories of the personality of Godhead. That is the missing piece in your literature. Right? And those glories are spotless glories. Amalam Yena. Amalam Yena, yeah. Amalam means spotless. Because only those glorifications actually satisfy the senses of the Lord. They give true satisfaction to the Paramatma within the heart, the Bhagavan. So that only satisfies the heart. So everything else is worthless. If your philosophy, whatever you spoke, doesn't cover that, it's worthless. It's a very big statement actually to hear. After giving, suppose you worked on for 5 years, for example, on a PhD thesis, and you go to your professor and he says, "Hey, you did a lot of work, but it's worthless." Imagine, right? Such a, and it is directly your spiritual master, nobody else. Right? Imagine the state of Vyasdev, who is like, he's considered the spiritual master for the entire world. Okay? Yeah.
The Lord has expanded himself as living beings in order to accept loving service from them. And this alone can satisfy both Lord and the living beings. Such a scholar as Vyasadeva has completed many expansions of the Vedic literatures, ending with the Vedanta philosophy, but none of them have been written directly glorifying the personality of Godhead. Dry philosophical speculations, even on the transcendental subject of the Absolute, have very little attraction without directly dealing with the glorification of the Lord.
Yeah. So there is definitely glorification of Lord, but that is not the focus in most of the literature. So that is the real problem. See, it's a very subtle problem. Can anybody say there is not direct? So Narada Muni already understands all the literature that were given by Vyasdev, by the way, right? So he knows all the Vedas in and out of what Vyasdev given, because otherwise he cannot make a comment like this. Right? He knows everything very well. and he knows very well what is the defect in all that he had clear. Right? Yata dharma dayaschardha
यथा धर्मोदयश्चार्था
munivaryan kirtita
मुनिवर्यानुकीर्तिता
natata vasudevasya
न तथा
तथा
वासुदेवस्य
वासुदेवस्य
महिमा हि अनुवर्णिता.
महिमा हि अनुवर्णिता
Is it?
Although great sage, you have very broadly described the four principles beginning with religious performances. You have not described the glories of the Supreme Personality, Vasudeva.
You have broadly described the four principles. What are they? Dharma, adhaya.
Dharma, artha, kama.
Dharma, artha, kama, moksha, purposes. Yeah. Yeah. So you repeated everywhere this topic. What is the topic? Dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Went to every book and you wrote the same content. But in fact, what you should do, repeated glorification of personality of Godhead is more interesting. That is going to address the real problem of the conditions jiva. Now, if you have repeated everywhere this, what happens with the jivas? They conditioned souls, they have the enjoyment mentality. Now they use the excuse of Vedas to actually fulfill their material desires. In the name of Vedas, now they are okay. They can do Lakshmi Puja, this Puja, that Puja to fulfill their desires. So, okay, you want to gradually raise people to the higher consciousness, but this is called bridge preaching, right? Bridge preaching. In the modern terms, it's called bridge preaching. That is the technique that Vyasadeva employed to actually bring the souls to a higher state of consciousness. But there was a conversation with Niranjan Maharaj with Gaurang Prabhu. Gaurang Prabhu was talking about, Maharaj, this is bridge preaching, this is how we're trying to do. Maharaj to that said, bridge preaching. Sometimes, people fall off the bridge. You have to be careful. And, sometimes the preacher himself goes to the other side of the bridge. So these are all the challenges of bridge preaching. Bridge preaching is not necessarily effective. If you don't give the direct message, people may fall off the bridge, or they may get stuck in the middle of it. They may die before they actually cross the bridge. So we should, in any event called direct bridge preaching, try to involve direct Krishna consciousness, at least partial. Otherwise, it's not really beneficial, right? So you gave all this literature, but people are now hanging on to that. They don't want to cross the bridge. They just want to hang on to dharma, artha, kama, and repeatedly follow the same thing. They don't want to cross the, come to the higher stages beyond that. Right? It will take many lifetimes for them to realize and cross this dharma, artha, and kama cycle. Spiritual master can promptly diagnose the problem of the disciple. Okay? So the prompt diagnosis of Sri Narada is at once declared. The root cause of the despondency of Vyasadeva was his deliberate avoidance of glorifying the Lord in his various editions of the Puranas. He has certainly, as a matter of course, given descriptions of the glories of the Lord, Sri Krishna, but not as many given to religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and salvation. These four items are by far inferior to engagement in the devotion service of the Lord. So Vyasadeva, as the authorized scholar, knew very well this difference. He knows very well. And still, instead of giving more importance to the better type of engagement, namely devotion service to the Lord, he had more or less improperly used his valuable time, and thus he was despondent. Okay, very clear. He used all his time. 99% of the time is already spent of his lifetime in giving this literature. Narada
Prabhuji,
wants me.
sorry, Prabhuji. Why do Prabhupada say like deliberate avoidance of glorifying the Lord? Is it that Vyasadev deliberately avoided it?
I mean, in terms of literature, if you see the literature, it appears like that for most people. So the glorification of the Supreme Lord doesn't come out as the essence in those books. You ask anybody who reads other Puranas, they'll never understand. They'll also think that, you can worship Vishnu, you can also worship Ganesha. That's how they. You look at all the Brahmanas in India, they don't really come to this conclusion, the ultimate conclusion, right? So the problem is it's not deliberate avoidance, but by the compiled work, it has that effect. Narada recommended to Vyasadeva that he should now engage and repeatedly describe the path of devotion service. Okay? Just like you described Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha repeatedly. Now do the same thing in one literature, repeatedly glorify through various pastimes the glories of the devotion service, the path of devotion service. This would cure him from his gross despondence. All his miseries will be vanquished by that. So these are next few verses are glorifying these descriptions of path of devotion service. Nayat Chitra Padam Harer Yasho. This is a memorization verse. You can, afterwards you can read this. This is an exam question also. Jagat Pavitram Pragrinita Karhichet.
Jagat Pavitram Pragrinita Karhichet.
Tadvayasam Tirthamushanti Manasa.
Tadvayasam Tirtham Ushanti Manasa.
Nayatra Hamsa Nirmanti Usikshaya.
Nayatra Hamsa Nirmanti Usikshaya.
Please read.
Those words which do not describe the glories of the Lord, who alone can sanctify the atmosphere of the whole universe, are considered by saintly persons to be like unto a place of pilgrimage for crows. Since the all perfect persons are inhabitants of the transcendental abode, they do not derive any pleasure there.
Any other literature which does not describe the glories of the Lord, right? Which alone sanctify the atmosphere of the universe, the whole universe. Such literatures were treated by great people, great saintly people, like a pilgrimage for crows. Where do crows go? In our experience, we know about crows, right? In India, we have seen crows. Where do the crows assemble?
Trash can.
Near the trash.
Yeah, crows are attracted to trash. So like that, any literature that does not glorify Lord is like a pilgrimage for crows. Pilgrimage means it's like a
Party.
Party time for the crows. Crows would be enjoying that. People like crows are low class animals, right? Considered like that. Yeah. So, and the devotees are like hamsas, paramahamsas. They want the essence, right? Since all perfect persons are inhabitants of the transcendental abode, they do not derive any pleasure there. So he's just talking about the rest of the Vedic literature compiled by Vyasadeva, right? So great saintly people do not see value in your books because your books are filled with Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. They try to read it. They're not looking for that and they're not really happy with that. They do not find any kind of pleasure in your books. Great saintly people. Because they're not looking for temporary benefits in the material world. So why would they really be attracted to your literature that you have given so far? Yeah, please read.
Crows and swans are not birds of the same feather because of their different mental attitudes. The fruitative workers or passionate men are compared to the crows, whereas the all perfect saintly persons are compared to the swans. The crows take pleasure in a place where garbage is thrown out, just as the passionate fruitive workers take pleasure in wine and women, and places for gross sense pleasure. The swans do not take pleasure in the places where crows are assembled for conferences and meetings.
Yeah, we discuss this. So Prabhupada just describes so many literatures available in the market, which are attracted, which attract men versus women. These are all like cross categories of literature. Okay? So containing refused remnants or sensuous topics. They're generally known as mundane talks in relation with the gross body and so they only cater to the needs of body and mind. So it doesn't really satisfy the heart of the jiva, conditioned soul. Okay? But please read this. Yeah, but literatures which describe the glories of the, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
But literatures which describe the glories of the Lord are enjoyed by the Paramhamsas who have grasped the essence of human activities.
So the Paramhamsas who are looking for the Paramahamsa mean Hamsa. Paramahamsa is a it's Hamsa is a bird, but Paramahamsa are devotees who can distinguish very clearly what is truth versus what is not. Right? Just like Hamsa can separate milk from water, that is the capability of Hamsa. A Paramahamsa is a devotee in that way who can clearly distinguish truth from the false, or temporary from the permanent. Who can they can understand the essence of human activity. They know very well the human beings are working day and night to enjoy their senses. Right? So they know exactly what what everybody is trying to get from this Vedic literature. And if they read this literature, Vedic literature, they know exactly what is wrong with that. Visargo Janata Viplavo Yashmin Pratishlokamabadhavatyati
Yasmin pratishlokam abhadravadyapi
Namani Anantasya Yashonkito Yashonkitani Yat
namani anantasya vyasho ankitani yat
Shrinvanti Gayanti Grinanti Sadava
Shranvanti gayanti grananti sadava.
Another important memorization verse. This is actually the prediction of Prabhupada literature. Okay. Yeah, please read this.
On the other hand, that literature which is full of description of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, forms, pastimes, etc. of the unlimited Supreme Lord is a different creation, full of transcendental words directed towards bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest.
So he's just contrasting the two types of literature. Here he described, Narada Muni described literature which is full of dharma, artha, kama, moksha, but doesn't glorify the Lord. That is like pilgrimage for crows. It's useless. No Paramhamsas will take any pleasure there. Now, on the other hand, a literature which is full of transcendental glories of the Lord, His name, fame, forms, pastimes. So such literature, even though it has literary defects, for example, and it's not composed in the best way, it's not composed in the most easy to understand way, but still such literature can bring about a revolution in the impious lives of these world's misdirected civilization. This is actually prediction of Srila Prabhupada's literature. And here he's he takes the humble position like, my literature is full of some literary faults may be there, but it doesn't mean that though our Prabhupada's literature has any faults. It doesn't have any faults, but even such literature has some literary mistakes. It doesn't matter. Such literatures, even though imperfectly composed, right, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. Okay? Sadhavaha, Grinanti Sadhavaha, the purified men who are honest. Okay? They are going to hear. So this is the contribution of Srila Prabhupada to the world. Okay? Please read this. I want to read this.
It is a qualification of the great thinkers to pick up the best even from the worst. It is said that the intelligent man should pick up nectar from a stalk of poison, should accept gold even from a filthy place, should accept a good and qualified wife even from an obscure family, and should accept a good lesson even from a man or from a teacher who comes from the untouchables. These are some of the ethical instructions for everyone in every place without exception. But a saint is far above the level of an ordinary man.
Yeah.
He is always absorbed in glorifying the Supreme Lord, because by broadcasting the holy name and fame of the Supreme Lord, the polluted atmosphere of the world will change. And as a result of propagating the transcendental literatures like Srimad Bhagavatam, people will become sane in their transactions. While preparing this commentation on this particular stanza of Srimad Bhagavatam, we have a crisis before us. Our neighboring friend China has attacked the border of India with a militaristic spirit. We have practically no business in the political field. Yet we see that previously there were both China and India, and they both lived peacefully for centuries without ill feeling. The reason is that they lived those days in an atmosphere of God consciousness, and every country over the surface of the world was God-fearing, pure-hearted, and simple, and there was no question of political diplomacy. There is no cause of quarrel between the two countries, China and India, over land, which is not very suitable for habitation, and certainly there is no cause for fighting on this issue. But due to the age of quarrel, Kali, which we have discussed, there is always a chance of quarrel on slight provocation. This is due not to the issue in question, but to the polluted atmosphere of this age. Systematically, there is propaganda by a section of people to stop glorification of the name and fame of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, there is a great need for disseminating the message of Srimad Bhagavatam all over the world. It is the duty of every responsible Indian to broadcast the transcendental message of Srimad Bhagavatam throughout the world, to do all the supermost good as well as to bring about the desired peace in the world.
So this is our duty. We should. So that is the reason we share the books of Srila Prabhupada as much as possible. Right? So during Srila Prabhupada's time, we are in the at the forefront, in the right medium. At that time, people were reading books, and we were distributing books, and almost books of Srila Prabhupada were distributing like anything. In every major cities, they were distributed. So in today's world, the medium has changed. People are more inclined to online mediums, or the medium of receiving message, like Twitter, Facebook. So we also need to, with the times, we need to change how we adopt, so that we need to go where the people are right now, right? So at those times, it was the perfect right thing to do, to distribute the books widely, and reach to the people in that way, talk to the people. Now, people are not, so much into reading books, especially large books. They just want a small tweets. So like that, people's span of attention has reduced. It's not the same. It's not the same kind of people. People have changed. the way they receive their knowledge is all changed. So accordingly, so we were like at the forefront in the medium of communication where in those days, but now I don't think we are at the forefront in terms of the current mediums in which people's attention is, right? Where the people's attention is. So that's one lesson we can learn. Right? Yeah. So the idea is to spread the literature which is full of the glories of the Supreme Lord. And when they are heard, sung, and accepted or purified, such literature will be accepted by the thoroughly honest people. Okay? And that can bring about the revolution in the misdirected civilization. See? So Narada Muni was such a great preacher who knows very well. This is a conversation between the greatest preachers ever existed, right? So Vyasadeva was also a great preacher in terms of writing all this literature and giving this wisdom to the world. Narada Muni, being his spiritual master, even guiding him how to disseminate this knowledge and what kind of literature should be written. And this is the mindset of a preacher. Yeah, please read this.
The people in general want to read, but because their minds are polluted, they want such literatures. Under the circumstances, transcendental literature like Srimad Bhagavatam will not only diminish the activities of the corrupt mind of the people in general, but also it will supply food for their hankering after reading some interesting literature. In the beginning, they may not like it because one suffering from jaundice is reluctant to take sugar candy, but we should know that sugar candy is the only remedy for jaundice. Similarly, let there be systematic propaganda for popularizing reading of Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, which will act like sugar candy for the jaundice-like condition of sense gratification.
So we should keep on distributing this knowledge. So this is the solution given by Narada Muni to Vyasadeva. Just give the literature that is full of transcendental glories and share this wisdom, and the thoroughly honest people will accept it. Those who are honest people, they will accept it. Those who are somewhat worldly minded, they may not appreciate this literature, but the thoroughly honest people will see the truth in these books and they will accept it. And this is you can see, right, this is actually a prediction of Prabhupada literature, right? Okay? So Prabhupada's literature is the only literature we can, at least as far as I know, which is full of transcendental words directed towards bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Okay? If you look at Vyasadeva's literature, was only limited to India, but Prabhupada's literature went all over the world, right? Almost 170, 180 countries where his literature is available. Nishkarmyamapyachyutavavavarjitam Shobhate Jnanamalam Niranjanam Tah Punasa Swadabhadramishware Charpitam karma yadapi akaram. Please read.
Knowledge of self-realization, even though free from all material affinity, does not look well if devoid of a conception of infallible God. What then is the use of fruitive activities which are naturally painful from the very beginning and transient by nature, if they are not utilized for the devotional service of the Lord?
So now he is rejecting two other paths. which is one is jnana, transcendental knowledge, or knowledge of self-realization, and karma, fruitive work. Right? So what is the use of these things? Right? If it doesn't have the conception of the Supreme Lord. So jnana and karma paths are rejected by Narada Muni. Yeah, continue.
As referred to above, not only ordinary literatures devoid of the transcendental glorification of the Lord are condemned, but also Vedic literatures and speculation on the subject of impersonal Brahman when they are devoid of devotional service. When speculation on the impersonal Brahman is condemned on the above ground, then what to speak of ordinary fruitive work, which is not meant to fulfill the aim of devotional service?
So previously, the worldly literature was rejected. Now even the jnana, the path of jnana and the path of fruitive work, the karma yoga and karma kanda, those are also rejected. Because they don't satisfy the heart. Right? So ultimately, see, we are all energy of the Lord. We are all part and parcel of the Lord. We are energy of the Lord. And we are created for a purpose. The purpose is to engage in the service of the Lord. And if that is not happening, you take any other path of yoga, it doesn't satisfy the heart. It's like fish out of water. Anything outside, anything, any other process that's not pure devotion service, that doesn't involve glorifying the name, form, pastimes of the Lord, then that is not going to satisfy the heart of the jiva. Yeah, that's what this is. Yeah.
The bona fide enjoyer of the fruitive work is the personality of Godhead, and thus when it is engaged for the sense gratification of the living beings, it becomes an acute source of trouble.
If a person performs fruitive work for his own satisfaction, that becomes an acute source of trouble, because that is not the purpose. Everything is meant for the sense gratification of the Supreme Lord, transcendental senses of the Supreme Lord. That is the only purpose of any activity that we do. Ato mahabhaga bhavan amoghadre.
Ato
Mahabhaga Bhavan
Suchi srava satyarato dritavrata.
Suji Srava Satyarato
Vrata
Urukramasya khila bandha muktaye.
Urukramasya Khila Bandha
Muktaye
Samadhinana smara tadvichestitam.
Samadhinanusmara Tate
Vijaystitam.
O Vyasadeva, your vision is completely perfect. Your good fame is spotless. You are firm in woe and situated in truthfulness. And thus you can think of the pastimes of the Lord in trance for the liberation of the people in general from all material bondage.
First, Vyasadeva compared other knowledge, other paths, you can say, other paths to devotional path. And you compile this literature, even though it has many faults, doesn't matter. It will bring about the revolution in the lives of the conditioned souls. That is the need of the hour. And now he says you are the best person who is qualified, because he talked about the qualities of Vyasadeva. Amoghadrik. Amoghadrik means he's a perfect seer. You know what is the truth. Suchi, you're spotless. Your character is spotless. No? And so Sravaha Satyarataha, having taken the vow of truthfulness, Vridavrataha, fixed in spiritual qualities. Now you glorify Urukramasya, of one who performs supernatural activities. Akhila, universal bandha, bondage, muktaye. He is going to liberate. The Lord will liberate Come from Dhanda. Yes. So how you should do Anusmara? Think repeatedly and then describe them. Think about the Lord's pastimes repeatedly. And that's how you would combine this literature, and that will really help people to come out of the material bondage. He glorified the qualities of the Vyasadeva, and then he gives the instruction. What he should do, he should think about the pastimes of the Lord and put them in writing. And that will help the people in general to get out of the material bondage. This is the only path. Okay? You are the most qualified person. So now Vyasadeva had full faith in his spiritual master. Now he heard the instruction. Okay? So let's see what he does after this. Tato anyata kinchana yadvivakshata.
ततो
अन्यथा
अन्यथा
किञ्चन
विवक्षता
कृतरूपनामभि
कृतदृशसत्कृतरूपनामभिः
कर्हिचित्या क्वापि च दुष्टितामतिर्
न गर्हिचित्वापि
लाभे तवाता हतनौ इवास्पदम्
Whatever you did. Yeah, Prabhu. Go ahead.
Whatever you desire to describe that is separate in vision from the Lord simply reacts with different forms, names, and results to agitate the mind as the wind agitates the boat which has a no resting place.
If suppose a boat is not tied to the harbor, any wind blows it, it moves in different direction. So similarly, if you whatever you desire to describe, that is separate in vision from the Lord. So Lord's vision is that the jivas engage in the service and they become satisfied. So if you try to engage these conditioned souls in any other activities through your literature, through your compositions, right, they will only agitate the mind of the conditioned soul. They won't really help. Just like a boat which is not anchored will move in all directions, right? So it's just warning about anything else that the result of the things that he compiled, which is not in the vision of Supreme Lord, because Supreme Lord doesn't want the conditioned soul to enjoy the material world, right? So any other like karma kanda, karma yoga, all these are things which are not in full alignment with the vision of the Supreme Lord. Yeah, continue.
Yeah, Sri Vyasadeva is the editor of all descriptions of the Vedic literature, and he has described transcendental realization in different ways, namely by fruitive activities, speculative knowledge, and mystic power and devotional service. Besides that, in his various Puranas, he has recommended the worship of so many demigods in different forms and names. The result is that people in general are puzzled how to fix their minds in their service of the Lord. They are always disturbed about the finding the real path of self-realization. Srila Naradeva is stressing this particular defect in the Vedic literature compiled by Vyasadeva, and thus he is trying to emphasize describing everything in relation with the Supreme Lord and no one else.
Yeah, Naradeva exactly pointed the defect and now is directing him to do the right thing. He emphasized Just like you're emphasizing on the other things, now you emphasize on the real thing, the Supreme Lord. Yeah, now read this. This is interesting.
Therefore, Srila Vyasadeva should not have compiled any Puranas other than the Bhagavata Purana, because a slight deviation from that may create havoc for self-realization. If a slight deviation can create such havoc, then what to speak of deliberate expansion of the ideas separate from the absolute truth personality of a Godhead?
Yeah. So we have to be careful whenever we, in the name of preaching or anything, if we try to deviate from the main thing, try to do yoga and through that bring people, we have to be careful. We have to be under guidance to do such things, because they might distract one from the real essence. And people just hang on there, they won't come beyond the bridge.
So, Prabhuji, one quick question, Prabhu. So, referring to that highlighted point above, different demigods. Yeah, the Puranas, he has recommended the worship of so many demigods in different forms and names. The result is that people in general are puzzled how to fix their minds in the service of the Lord. And it's difficult to find out the real path, right? So even now also we are reading so many questions from people outside saying that your religion has so many gods and how can you worship everyone, right? This is a general question we come across.
Confusion, yeah.
Yeah.
Most of the outsiders, even including Hindus, they think all gods are equal, right? That is all coming because of the way the Vedic literatures are describing, worshipping various demigods as the deities for Benedictine in certain ways. Right? Many people worship Vinayaka, for example. Right? Many people worship Kali or Durga or Parvati or Lakshmi individually. So those are all not good. So so ideally, in the purpose says, Vyasadeva should not have compiled all these other Puranas. Now, because of that being there, people think Bhagavatam is just one Purana. Who want to follow, they can follow that. But we are not interested in, so we will follow Skanda Purana or other Matsya Purana or things like that. So people don't, even today it is very difficult for them to, focus on one thing because of what is available right now.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I have one question regarding what Prabhuji asked. So one of our friends, he told that he has read few pages of Shiva Purana, which claims that Lord Shiva is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and his not argument, his statement was, how can, just like as you said, like how can we believe that Bhagavatam is the ultimate, right? It can also be another Purana. So in perspective of Bhagavatam, Lord Krishna is supreme. In perspective of Shiva Purana, Lord Shiva is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So what is the difference? Yeah. How can we answer those kinds of questions, Prabhuji, or statements?
So there are references about Bhagavad Purana in other Puranas, about the supremacy of Bhagavad Purana versus other literature. And the history of Srimad Bhagavatam itself is a big evidence about why at all this, what is the history of compiling this book versus other books. This was compiled in the most mature stage by Vyasadeva. After compiling everything else and being despondent, trying to understand his despondency, that is the reason for this compilation versus other literature. So it's like, those books describe in glorifying specific deities, not as supreme. By the way, they don't, like in Shiva Purana also, I haven't read, but those who read, they don't, claim that Shiva is the only deity like that. They say there is Vishnu, there is Shiva, but we worship Shiva like that.
But they glorify Shiva more, and they
More
they
glorification.
ridicule or they kind of reduce the importance or the prominence of Vishnu, and they make Shiva as the most prominent.
Correct. Yeah. So we
Yeah.
have to see the literature in totality. We have to see. So then one can understand the position of Bhagavad Purana versus other Puranas. How these Puranas are compiled. What was the motivation? These are all given by Vyasadeva. So we need to dig into that. So we for sure know about the history of Bhagavatam, how Bhagavatam was compiled and what was the reason for its compilation. That we don't hear the same kind of stories for other Puranas. More or less, they are like, for example, in your hometown, there is a newspaper, right? The local newspaper glorifies the local MLA more than the chief minister or prime minister, right? Because he is not relevant in the various projects in the village, right? So you will see the big cutouts of your local MLA, local village panchayat leaders, like that in your village. You will see very less about the prime minister picture there, because he's not relevant for most of the activities and things that are going in the local context. So like that, there are these Puranas, and there are people with specific desires. Those people will be attracted to those literature, and they feel great satisfaction in fulfilling their desires. And most of it is, if you look at, there is no Ananya Bhakti described in Shiva Purana. There will be mostly descriptions of how Lord Shiva solved, for example, this particular Vrutra Asura, he worshipped Lord Shiva by cutting his body like this and doing all this, and Lord Shiva was pleased and he benedicted like this. So those stories will be written like that. So if you read the literature also, you can see the quality of the content or the consciousness of the content. So that also very well clearly shows what is what. So you don't see this kind of glorification or the stories of look at the literature that we have, right? The prayers of Queen Kunti, how deep are they? I want more and more problems. You will never see such such kind of prayers in other literature. Vrutrasura says, come on, do your duty, Indra, fight and cut my head fast. Right? So you won't see such description in other layers. Most of the people are businessmen. This is Asura. They want certain things. They are giving up everything and meditating on Shiva or Lord Brahma. And as soon as they get the power, they go and destroy him. So passionate and ignorance-oriented stories you hear. And those stories are even touched upon even in our literature. It's not like they're not limited to, all the pastimes are limited everywhere.
Prabhu, sorry to interrupt. I heard one of the class of Amoglila Prabhu, and he mentioned that third Manvantara is where Lord Shiva was given a godly role compared to Vishnu and Brahmaji, so he could play some more pastimes in that Manvantara, and that was been explained in the Shiv Purana. That's why it says that Shivji has the more power than Vishnu or other Brahmaji. But then that is not the story for the other Manvantaras. So now when some of the Puranas are keep in mind in different Manvantaras, can put an illusion in whoever is reading or referring to.
Yeah. And also, Lord Shiva is a servant god. He is not of Jiva. He is almost equivalent to Supreme Lord. He is Lord himself, just an expansion of Lord to cater to certain consciousness of people. People of certain consciousness, right? People in the mode of ignorance primarily. Right? They need somebody who takes care of them, right? So come to their level, and Bhutas, Pichasas, or those people in the lower grades, low modes, they need a god to worship. They cannot understand, the bhakti as we, following four regulative principles. Those are not things that they are attracted to or they can potentially do. So for them, there is a level of wisdom that is given so that they can slowly, at least first build the faith in the deity and follow certain rules at least, right? When you have to cut animals only do it on a specific days and chanting certain mantras. So those things are allowed. They can be offered also to certain deities. So like that, provisions are made, and deities were set up so that those people are catered to. So the Vedic wisdom is very broad-minded, and it caters to the lowest grade of consciousness people out of the 400,000 human consciousnesses. The lowest grade of people were also catered versus the highest grade. So these knowledge are catered to various levels. It's not one and the same, right? So knowledge of the first grade is not to be followed by the a person who is at a PhD level, right? So it's like that.
Prabhu, also there is a difference between Shiva and Rudras as well, right? So Sadashiv is in the Maheshtam, in the lowest part of the spiritual world. So it's very hard to convince someone who doesn't have detailed knowledge about Shiva.
But I think we should, we all have different parts of arguments we make, but there has to be a cohesive argument saying this is how it is, so that it's easy to convey, right? Unfortunately, I haven't heard from anybody clearly giving a cohesive answer to say this is how it is. No, for me, if somebody asks me, what I tell them is usually, you look at Bhagavad Gita, where the Lord clearly outlines all the principles from creation to how a humankind should live and die, right? Not such knowledge has been shared by Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma. And Lord showed his Vishwarupa to explain all his creations, entire creation, right? All the material world, spiritual world, everything you could see from Lord Krishna. But not such thing was never exhibited by Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma. So which means you have to understand that Lord Shiva is inferior to the creator, Lord Krishna. Right? So like that's something we have to have a cohesive story. So when we explain, people would be able to relate to it. Okay, that makes sense, and as a plausible explanation, rather than us picking some stories here and there and trying this together would be a difficult, it may not look convincing, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a good point. From the activities you're saying, right?
Yeah.
So just like we have slides for proving Krishna is the supreme and how other all the great personalities and demigods have glorified him, we should probably have a presentation which talks about this. Is that what you're saying, Prabhuji?
Yeah, but
Yes,
in general, people do not like such arguments.
Yes, they get offended. I agree.
They get offended, trying to have a presentation on topic of comparing Lord Shiva and Krishna and trying to prove one over the other, right?
Yeah,
so those topics generally, those are delicate. We should not, hurt anybody's feelings. So explain. I mean, the basic principle is who is Lord Shiva. The principle of Lord Shiva. He is like a milk transformed into curd. He's the same Lord, same energies, same supreme energy, the supreme, proprietor of everything, energetic, but a slight transformation so that he can cater to a certain category of people, certain purposes. Yeah. So certain pastimes he performs, right?
Yeah.
So for me, intrinsically, there is not much difference in terms of capabilities or anything. Just it's a slight variation of the Supreme Lord. So we do not show them like two different personalities. They are one and the same, actually, ultimately in the core. So one is just performing certain functions. We all have this notion of, okay, Lord Shiva, before coming to Krishna consciousness as a personality of his own category versus Lord Krishna. But with the understanding of Brahma Samhita and Vedic literature that we studied, we know they're all actually sourced in Lord Krishna. Only everybody else is an expansion for a particular purpose. Like, for example, Rama is also an expansion. Balaramji is also a servant god. So that way, there is one supreme absolute truth. Rest is, there are Tadiya, Vidya, there are various incarnations of the Supreme Lord for various purposes. And he's equivalent to Lord, just he's performing certain, obligations on behalf of Lord. So in that sense, it doesn't offend anybody. He's equivalent to Lord, just his activities are catered to certain people. Yeah, instead of trying to prove he's definitely low compared to high, that kind of hurts feelings. So I would stop there without further describing. And also you can look at the devotees of both personalities and see how they relate to the Lord, right? So that shows the path of pure devotion versus mixed devotion. You don't see the any of the devotees of Lord Shiva following Ananya Bhakti. Like I mean, there are few devotees. It's not like there are no pure devotees there. But most of the stories we hear, you will never hear any devotee or any person who is worshipping Lord Krishna, especially Lord Krishna or Vishnu Tattvas, getting any benediction without first getting purified. Right? Never see anybody taking advantage of the deity, like Hiranyakashipu took advantage of Brahmaji, right, to get a benediction like I should not die. So you don't, and what is the one demon? He wanted to, put his hand and kill the person, right? Whoever, and he wanted to put that hand on Lord Shiva himself, right? So yeah, I forgot the name of the demon.
Mahishasura.
Bhasmasura, I think, yeah. So you don't hear such pastimes in Lord Vishnu or Vishnu category deities giving such benedictions. So you can see the pathways also, the difference between the two categories. Because Lord Shiva is very Ashutosh. He's easily pleased. And he wants to benedict people in general very easily without much due diligence. Okay? So that is how the deity is made, and that's how it responds. And there are many stories of devotees who were sincere worshippers of Lord Shiva, and they actually became devotees of Lord Krishna. Even in ISKCON also there are many devotees who changed, who were initially upasakas of Lord Shiva, but they were sincere. They were not looking for material things from Lord Shiva, and they were inspired to take to Krishna consciousness seriously. Right? Like Nityananda Prabhu of Dallas Temple president. So he was one such devotee. There are many such devotees in India in the past.
Radhisham Prabhu also.
Radhisham Prabhu also.
He was, like that.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Jugupsitam dharma kritenu tata sasata. Swabhava raktasya mahan vatikrama. Yadvakyato dharma iti tarastito. Namanyate tasya nivaranam jana. It's a little bit strong words here. Yeah. Please.
The people in general are naturally inclined to enjoy, and you have encouraged them in that way in the name of religion. This is verily condemned and is quite unreasonable. Because they are guided under your instructions, they will accept such activities in the name of religion and will hardly care for prohibitions.
This is the problem with preaching, right? So Narada Muni was so intelligent. You see, Jugupsitam dharma kriten nanusasata. So these kind of cross religion is not going to work, which is not focused on the ultimate instruction. You gave some instruction which is not the ultimate. That is the real problem of your literature. Already they are inclined to enjoy conditioned soul, right? Being conditioned soul, they are already inclined to say. And now you encouraged by giving in the name of religion. So now it is bona fide. You made it bona fide through through religion. You made all the, you know, all the enjoyment propensities are now made bona fide by giving in this way. And why would they give up those things at all, right? Once they understand that I can do this in a bona fide way, why would I give up, right? Like, you know, somebody is arguing, right? Like Mavi was saying, they, you know, this Purana says like this, why would we give up? Because they don't want to follow this Purana. There is 4 regulative principles here. There is a morning japa. You know, they think it is all very difficult. You know? Why would we follow this? We are also following a different Purana. We will follow that because that's catering to our needs. Right? People are naturally inclined to enjoy sense gratification, and now we have made it bona fide through a path of religion. So that is the real problem. That is the reason for your despondency, my dear Prabhu. Yeah. So they will not care for prohibition. They don't care. You know, once you give this, once you made this bona fide, they won't care. Yeah. So that's the problem with your work. Yeah.
Srila Vyasadeva is the authority in Vedic explanations in the Mahabharata, etc. And his encouragement in sense enjoyment in some form or other is a great barrier for spiritual advancement, because the people in general will not agree to renounce material activities which hold them in material bondage. At a certain stage of human civilization, when such material activities in the name of religion, as sacrificing animals in the name of yajna, were too much rampant, the Lord incarnated himself as Buddha and decried the authority of the Vedas in order to stop animal sacrifice in the name of religion. This was foreseen by Narada, and therefore he condemned such literatures.
Now, in the name of religion, the Brahmanas were, you know, corrupt. They are performing, you know, this Vedic sacrifices of offering the animals, sacrificial offerings. So this kind of work that you did, see, this is now Lord has to come back again to stop this animal killing. So this kind of work that you did will cause all these kind of problems. So Narada Muni predicts all of this beforehand itself. Right? So he could see what's going to come in the future because of the literature that is available in Vedas. Yeah. Just read this couple of lines.
Okay. The flesh eaters still continue to perform animal sacrifice before some demigod or goddess in the name of religion, because in some of the Vedic literatures, such regulated sacrifices are recommended.
Yeah. Actually, they are so recommended to discourage flesh eating, but gradually the purpose of such religious activities is forgotten. And you see, slowly the degradation begins there, but it manifests in terms of in like a slaughterhouse, right? That is the problem. That is the problem with this kind of. So you make some allowance, it will be exploited because of the nature of the conditioned souls. Yeah. So in the histories of like Mahabharata, of course, there are topics of transcendental subjects along with material topics. But the prominence is people, conditioned soul, are tuned to the material things and they will be attracted to that. They will ignore the other things. They'll ignore the best things. They'll go after the things that fulfill their material desires. Right? But men with materialistic tendencies are more attracted to the politics, economics, and philanthropic activities mentioned in the Mahabharata than to the principal topic, namely the Bhagavad Gita. So this is the real problem. So this compromising spirit of Vyasadeva is directly condemned by Narada. See, the spiritual master can do that, who advises him to directly proclaim that the prime necessity of human life is to realize one's eternal position without delay. Yeah. So Prabhupada gives a nice example here for that. How a person who is deceased, he is still inclined to eat forbidden foods forbidden for him, right? But expert physician asked him to stop, but so that inclination is there. Conditioned jivas have that inclination, and if you allow them, they will do the mistake. They'll not stop doing that mistake. So yeah, very nice conversation between the two. Vichakshano shar hati vedu. No.
अतिवेदितुं विभो
Parasya nivritta sukham.
Anantaparasya nirvitta sadasukam.
Pravartamanasya gunairapmanas.
Pravartamanasya gunairanaatmanas.
Tato bhavan darshaya chestitam vibho.
Tato bhavan dharshaya chestitam vibho.
Please read.
The Supreme Lord is unlimited. Only a very expert personality, retired from the activities of material happiness, deserves to understand this knowledge of spiritual values. Therefore, those who are not so well situated due to material attachment should be shown the ways of transcendental realization by your goodness through descriptions of the transcendental activities of the Supreme Lord.
So you see here clearly the problem is stated.
Material attachment.
Those who are having material attachments, which is 99.99% of the conditions, if they read your literature, they will not get the essence. They won't. For example, we all had some idea of, some of us at least read Mahabharata, Ramayana, and other Puranas, maybe, but we never understood the real essence, right? Because we're all having attachments. If we are not shown the direct path clearly through direct descriptions of the transcendental activities of Lord, most likely we'll miss it. Only those who are very detached. Your literature, your bridge preaching would work for the most detached person. It's not for the attached person. That's what Narad Muni is saying. Only a very expert personality, retired from the activities of material happiness, deserves to understand this knowledge of spiritual values. Therefore, those who are not well situated due to material attachment should be shown the ways of transcendental realization by your goodness through the descriptions of the transcendental activities of the Supreme Lord. So you need to make explicit effort to write about the transcendental activities of the Supreme Lord so that everybody can benefit. So here Prabhupada makes statement that Bhagavatam is the topmost theological science and therefore it can react on the layman as the medicinal doses. Because it contains the transcendental activities of the Lord, there is no difference between the Lord and the literature. The literature is the factual literary incarnation of the Lord. So the layman can hear the narrations of the activities of the Lord. Anybody can read. Therefore, they're able to associate with the Lord and gradually become purified from the material diseases. Right? So the expert devotees also can discover novel ways and means to convert the non-devotees in terms of particular time and circumstances. Yeah. So Prabhupada mentions how Lord Chaitanya and his subsequent followers exhibited expert dexterity in this connection. By following the same method, one can bring the materialistic men of this age of quarrel into order for peaceful life and transcendental realization. This is a very famous verse. Yaktva swadharmam charanam bhujam harer.
Yaktva swadharmam charanam bhujam hare.
Bhajan apatpota pate tato yadi
Bhajan
apako
apako
patapate yadi
yatra vibhadram abhamusakim
yatra
Yatra
bhadram
bhadram
abhut
amusyakim
amusyakim
govarda ato bhajatam swadharmatah.
kovarta apo
Kovartato
bhajatam
bhajatam
dharmata.
dharmataha.
Yeah. Please read.
One who has forsaken his material occupations to engage in the devotional service of the Lord may sometimes fall down while in an immature stage. Yet there is no danger of his being unsuccessful. On the other hand, a non-devotee, though fully engaged in occupational duties, does not gain anything.
Yeah. It's talking like the theme of the second chapter, right? Where you perform every other activity perfectly, but you don't engage in devotion service, it is useless. But on the other hand, for the service of the Lord, if you give up your duties, right, really by the instruction of the spiritual master, it's not like because I don't like my work, I just give up my work. It should not be like that. So, if one who has forsaken his material occupation to engage in the devotion service of the Lord may sometimes fall down, sometimes they may fall down also, right? While in an immature state, yet there is no danger of his being unsuccessful. Let's hear take some examples, right? Bharata Maharaj, right? He gave up his kingdom, went on search for the Lord, and he, gave up everything, started meditating, and went to the stage of bhava. But he was attached to a deer and he fell down. But his good fortune is he remembers the Supreme Lord in his next life, even in the body of deer. Okay? So that is the protection of the Lord. Lord, even though one falls down from the standard of pure devotion service, Lord protects them. Lord protects the jiva, the one who has spent his time in performing devotion service. And who else? Even Azamila was in a way protected, correct? Azamila performed devotion service in his past life. Even though he fell down in his standard of life, towards the end of life, he remembered the name of the Lord and he was protected. So many pastimes like that. So that give reassurance of the path of devotion service versus any other path. In no other path you get such assurance. Right? But on the other hand, if you are engaging in more better fruitive activities fully, you have gained nothing because your karma is still going to bind you, right? So it doesn't help you much. So we'll end here. I think it's already almost 2 hours. Any questions?
Prabhuji, I wanted some help with what is bridge preaching. One thing Chaitanya Sundar Prabhuji mentioned, like not explicitly saying that Krishna is the Lord, right? And I didn't understand the last part, Prabhuji, where you have mentioned like, so people not understand the ultimate goal and get stuck with interim goals for many lifetimes. So if you don't tell them, how will they know?
So the idea, first let me explain bridge preaching, right? So people are at one consciousness level. They are like on the other side of the bridge. And devotees are on this side of the bridge. Their way of seeing, perception, their way of thought, they are in a different world. Now, if you directly talk in our terms, people, they can't relate. They'll be, for them it is too much. For example, when I started Krishna consciousness, really, frankly, I came for some kind of, peace of mind or some kind of yoga. I have some ideas of what I wanted in, spirituality. I never thought, I'm going to do bhajan or, I'm going to chant whole day. But those are not my thoughts when I started, right? So people have some, they look for some kind of a transformation or they look for some experiences. And for them, if you talk about surrender, it doesn't make sense at all, right? So bridge preaching is about introducing Krishna consciousness without like confusing them too much, or without giving too much philosophy, direct philosophy, right? But at the same time, it has to be done very carefully. Many people, so why they need bridge preaching? Because they don't have good understanding of, basics like soul, or the material nature. So there are things that we can preach as part of bridge preaching, like the concept of soul is universal. Like we talk to American, Indian, anybody can relate to it. Like I am seeing with the eyes, I can say, but my eye is just a physical thing. How can it perceive anything? Just like a camera. So there is something inside me that is perceived. So like that, everybody can understand. They can come to an understanding of they are not this body. Right? So we have to begin with those principles first. First, before we cannot argue with anybody about Krishna's supremacy or anything. First, you should first ask, do you understand who you are? You should ask like that. Do you understand your soul? If that is clear, what is soul? And what is body? And what is subtle body? Right? What made you to be here in this world? Right? And what are your natural tendencies? Like I will never want to die. So what are your natural tendencies? Right? You're always seeking happiness. So then you can relate, okay, these are the characteristics of the soul. So in this way, as you take them to what they can understand in a logical way, they will come to agree to our understanding, and then they will accept the higher principles. Because you are introducing a concept that is not in their purview of understanding. So you have to logically bring them slowly, without, without dilution, without diluting the original philosophy. But at the same time, that makes logical sense. When they ask, hey, what about the universal description? Why, the planetary system is geocentric in Vedic literature? There are a lot of controversies around those things. You tell them, hey, wait for it. Don't jump into those topics right now. First, begin to understand the soul concept. So I always begin there. Whenever people try to argue about anything higher concept, first, do you understand soul? So I'll stop them there. First, they don't even understand. I'll preach thoroughly about that for some days, and then slowly bring them to higher. Right? So that's how we should do. Bridge preaching is about giving them the understanding and what they understand, right? What they can understand from what they already know, right? And then expand their understanding slowly, so that they can come to a level at some point in their life to really accept Krishna consciousness. To accept Krishna consciousness requires a lot of background. Actually, it's not like anybody can act. Why would anybody, if suppose you don't have any background, why would you accept a person as God? You know the limitations of a body. How do you accept suddenly a person as a God? It requires accepting the transcendental nature of the Lord, first of all. Then you need to understand what is transcendental nature. Means there is something called spiritual existence. Okay. Then to understand that, you need to first understand the soul concept. So there is the transcendental thing existing within you in a minute quantity. So then they can understand, okay, there can be some vibhu also. Beyond this anu, there can be vibhu. So in that way, we gradually take them to the understanding of Krishna, right? The tattva of Krishna. So until they understand tattva of Krishna, you talk at a superficial level, they'll never understand. So limit the discussion to concepts they can relate to. That is bridge preaching. Right? The idea is to take them slowly, make them to think, ponder, hey, who am I? And what is the purpose of existence? Why am I seeking to live always? I don't want to die. So let them, appreciate those ideas, the answers to those questions first. When they appreciate, hey, this philosophy answers this better. The philosophy of karma is the only philosophy that answers so many questions about why somebody is born poor. So let them appreciate these, universal principles of Vedic knowledge. When they acknowledge that, slowly expand their horizon of understanding. Right? Don't force the higher philosophy and try to prove how Krishna is the Supreme Lord versus Lord Shiva. those are much higher concepts. They can't even relate to it at their level of consciousness. And to understand, accept the transcendental nature of the Krishna, unless they chant, they can't accept actually. Even after chanting, even I had like a lot of struggle to accept Krishna as the Supreme Lord in the almost 1 year of chanting 16 rounds. So it takes, many people take longer, much longer time as well. So it's not easy. Like a lot of people with, very simple mind may be able to accept that concept easily, but for most people in the current time and age, they are all looking for experiential wisdom. They don't want to just hear some theoretical ideas. For many of them, if you present, Vaikuntha, talk about Vaikuntha, they're all ethereal, and they're just think that we are some, living in a otherworldly beings, who are having some otherworldly ideas. They don't want to deal with the reality, so they think like that. So we should never talk about these things with any new person. We should always talk at the soul level. If you look at Prabhupada's preaching, like the way he talks to any new people in conversations, he limits the discussion to soul, and he thoroughly beats on that idea, because that's where we need to nail first.
So DYS is also bridge preaching, right, Prabhuji?
It is bridge preaching. It doesn't dilute the philosophy. It really logically takes one from, I don't know anything about who is God to I understand who is God. So that's a very, scientifically, logically presenting. It's the ideal bridge preaching.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Any other questions? Okay. So it's very late today, already 2 hours. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.